Okay, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tanita, and this is our catching up series. And I am so excited today. I am catching up with one of my former students. She's actually 1 year, well, less than 1 year from actually graduating. Not actually graduating, but she has graduated this past summer, and fantastic because she has hit the ground running. I can't wait to introduce her, and we have this super cool chat, and it's so much that we can learn from her. So super excited to bring on Michelle. Oh, I forgot. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel for updates and all cool things that will come out, including educational resources. Michelle,
Thank you
how are
so much for having
you?
me. I'm good. It's so good to catch up with you.
It really is. And I stumbled a bit, but that's okay. That's because I'm so super excited about just having you on and just all the cool things that you have contributed thus far in your young life. I mean,
Yeah.
you've done a
I-
lot. And so what I want to say is what I have known you since maybe the age of 15, I think.
I think
15 or
so. Yeah, that was in my second sophomore year of high school. So I would have been, yeah, I think 15 or maybe 16.
maybe
Right on
15
the
or
cusp, maybe.
16.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you are actually one of the last cohort of students that I've seen go from a whole extent of high school where I've built a relationship from, ninth through 12th. You are that last bit of cohort, and you actually graduated this past June. And what was your major?
So I studied neuroscience and sort of data science. I tried to study data science, but the data science major at U Chicago didn't exist until a couple years after I started. So I couldn't do the major, but I did take the classes. So I sort of think of myself as having done a neuroscience, data science double major, but I just majored in neuroscience technically.
I mean, that is super hardcore because we're talking about STEM, and we're talking about two extremes. We're talking about neuroscience and data science. I mean, neuroscience we haven't really tapped into the brain. We
Oh,
don't know so.
totally. Yeah. I mean, I
What do
think
you
that's what I loved about it so much is that I didn't understand it. Um, it was hard to want to study anything else when I didn't understand like the mind that was studying it. And and then data science fit in so well because you have to do so much like deep analysis to actually do anything with the brain because we can't see anything in there. So you kind of have to like gain these insights through the data. And so like it felt like it all fit together really well, which I loved.
That is awesome. Let me ask you, what is your favorite thing about neuroscience? Maybe a
Mm.
concept
Uh,
or
yeah.
maybe one of your favorite things to learn about neuroscience.
Well, I think there's like this classical, like the most classical thing I feel like people get really excited about, and this is totally what hooked me as well, is like very specific neural correlates of things that we experience. So,
Mhm.
we can measure all these different things in the brain, but sometimes there are these things where we measure them and they really correspond. Like we can say this specific type of signal corresponds to someone's experience of X. And so, like,
Wow.
for example, one of the things that some labs were doing was finding very specific patterns of neural activity that were reliably correlated with a like a mouse running down a specific trajectory. So they could like actually
Mm.
see the mouse experiencing the place they were running. And that was like one of like these really, really like close connections because it's so hard to
Yeah,
draw these connections between individual cells and things that people are actually experiencing. And that's like
yeah.
why neuroscience can be so difficult. But when you get those little glimpses that remind you that there is that connection, that was like the most exciting thing for me. And then I
I
think
mean,
the other thing Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm like that. I'm like, serious. I mean, like, neuroscience is hardcore, and you're just, I want to say bad, you know what, but you're just bad to the bone. I mean, wow. That's fantastic, Michelle. Neuroscience and just woman in STEM doing her thing. And then on the flip side, data science. So you have these totally two different disciplines, which you could potentially put them together somewhat with the whole deep analysis and you actually knowing how the brain works somewhat, right? Because we're still untapping how the brain functions.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of labs in neuroscience and like, you know, a lot of labs are just computational labs. There are a lot of labs that their main thing just is taking data that already exists and doing like a bunch of really like, you know, intense stuff with it. And people are
Mhm.
publishing these insane papers. You know, it's just like the most intense computational stuff. And they put all their energy towards that because they're not doing a bunch of data collection too. But
Mhm.
then there are also labs that have like done like, you know, a lot of like wet lab work for a really long time and then are starting to incorporate like these really cool computational techniques. They're just like everywhere in the spectrum, but I'd say like pretty much every neuroscience lab I can think of, you know, is is using at least like one data scientist or,
Of
you know,
course.
employing something like that. So it's like it's a very cool intersection.
It really is, and it's actually a growing field, and data's not going anywhere, and it
Oh
informs
yeah, of
us. It just informs us about a lot of things and helps us shape decisions, and I mean, it's pretty complex too, but wow, I mean, two really awesome fields. Let me ask you, when did you know that you wanted to go into STEM?
So I think like I it was more of I have always been kind of surrounded by STEM. Like
Mm,
my dad is a professor and so I've always been sort of surrounded by academia. Like, you know, I have like multiple grandparents who are doctors and I have multiple cousins who went to med school. So I think STEM was something that always felt like a little bit of a default to me. And so
mhm,
even though I always loved it, I always did have to think a little bit like, is this something I'm really running to because I love it? Or is it just like the path of least resistance for me? And so
mm,
when I was entering college, I was actually a psychology major, which is, you know, there are areas of psychology that are more STEM, and but some of it is like a very sort of soft science, and which is like still very rigorous. It's just kind of a different type of,
yes.
it's just like a different focus. And
Mhm.
I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I think after I took some of those classes, I realized that I did want to go a little bit deeper and look at like these lower level processes, the type of things I could do in a STEM major like neuroscience. And so then I feel like I moved back towards it. But it was sort of a process of like making sure it was really what I wanted to do and wasn't just something that, you know, I knew was quote unquote like a good career pathway or like what I was supposed to do. And now I know it is like also something I really love to do.
Yes, you got hit with the bug.
Yeah, basically.
I think me and you kinda have parallel, interests there. I was surrounded by STEM too, so I kinda by default, that's what I knew, and so it just made sense. It's what was easy to me. Both my mom and dad, STEM professions, so
Mhm.
it just made sense, right? It's just easy. It's like another language. Okay,
Yeah.
so how did you feel when you, graduated this past June?
So let's see. When I graduated, it felt very fast. Like I think that well, a lot of people say like, "Wow, I can't believe I'm already at the end of college and like I'm already graduating." That didn't feel that fast to me. I felt like all throughout college, I was like hyper aware of the stage I was within the system. Like I was like, I'm a first year, second year, for third year, fourth year, finishing this thesis, finishing this class, and it all felt like the natural progression of things. But then when I got to the point where got to finally the graduation point, everything there kind of went by really quickly. There was like all this stuff happening, and I already had a job, so I was kind of like already working part-time for them, and I was going to transition to full-time, and I was trying to like sneak in a little bit of relaxation but also celebration, and like there was a lot going on.
So
um
you
so I
were actually
yeah.
offered a position as soon as you graduated.
Yeah, so I got the position when I was in like April or March. I got the position in March while I was still a student, and they like wanted me to start right away, and I ended up agreeing to do it part-time while I was still in college. So, and
Nice.
that's a decision that I don't know I would have made if I could go back. um I think there's like value to really like being fully present for the college experience and for getting like a little bit of like rest uh after graduation, but that is what I did. um and so yeah, I mean, I think it can be really tempting to just take the first job, the first good job that you're offered, because it feels like it's so hard to find those, and you don't know when the next one's going to crop up, and this could be like the best one ever, so it's hard to like pass up those opportunities.
Well, I don't think that's the best one ever for you, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have so much to offer, STEM and also just humanity, because you are a humanitarian and you care so much. I mean, that's how you and I cross paths, is doing you volunteering your time on the weekend, on a very highly sought out day on a Saturday, in which you're able to, give back and teach younger kids about STEM, about science concepts. And so, since I've known you, I would say what I've taken away from you as just a student and just watching you grow, I'm always amazed about how poised you are. Like, nobody really knows what Michelle is thinking.
Is that
No
so?
one, yeah,
I
no
have
one
a
really
big
knows.
poker face. I've been told that.
Oh, you got a big poker face. But you know what? Michelle is gonna show up. So you always show up and you always put your effort in whatever you do. And so that's what I know. And it's been pretty awesome. And so sometimes I go, Michelle, what is Michelle thinking? Because you really did have a poker face. And I think your peers thought so as well. But what was so awesome is that not only I call you a silent assassin because you kind of move very silently, but you're a leader. But what was just awesome to see you to do is actually do like theater, science theater, which was really cool. I mean, to see how
That was
silent you are and then you go on the stage. How is that feeling, just, doing a theater show?
Yeah, so yeah, I did that. So I did that one of the summers. I was Ollie the Owl, so I was doing like presentations about, or I was the one asking the audience questions about like what they thought, or what they thought the answers to these like genetic questions were, and then they would like read out the answer, or like they would try to click the answer that was correct. And so I had to sort of like try to be engaging enough that they would want to participate in these with their little clickers and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. I think that like I don't think I'm always the most expressive person when I'm not like, in that type of environment. But like, and I've also never really been someone who does like a lot of performing. But when it was like in the interest of like science communication and education, I like always just felt so much motivation. And that was just like I mean, that was the theater show felt like an extension of like the rest of what we had done. Like even just like sitting at the tables when we were doing like the floor facilitations at MSI, which is like, we gotta like call someone over and then like be super present and engaged with them while they're like doing whatever little activity we have, whether that's playing with magnets or building a nightlight
Mhm.
or something like that. Um, and like I always just like felt like I had been taught these skills, like by you and by everyone else in the program. I was taught how to break down a concept, make it accessible for someone, and how to like speak in a way that actually communicated that. Um, and so I felt like I was given the tools to be able to be expressive in those situations, like in a theater show, which was really nice because I didn't always feel like I got those opportunities or got the opportunities to like, be the one teaching something.
Yeah, you totally rocked out. And I think that is why it's so important that you're in this space where you do understand these two different complex disciplines in STEM. The thing about it is a lot of people in these majors, in this industry, sometimes they jargon talk. They jargon talk in every industry, but sometimes it
Of
kind
course,
of,
yeah.
yeah, sometimes it kind of steers away students from going into STEM because of people are talking at and not talking with. And so it's very important, like you said, to break those things down that everybody can understand. And remember, we had like kindergartners and first
Oh,
graders,
totally. Yeah, even younger.
they were so excited and they understood, and that's what it's about. They understood genetics at that age, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, it was so exciting.
yeah. And so, another question I have is do you have any more takeaways from you and I's relationship from just knowing each other?
So I think that something that, and I was thinking about earlier. I was thinking about like what I mean. I have all these like amazing memories, but I was thinking about how can I actually like condense that down into something that I've learned or something that I took away from it. And I think one of the things that I took away from the program and from like my relationship with you during it was like I think that it's possible to like find community anywhere. And I remember like when I first started like the science minors program, it was like before any of the programming started, there was like this dinner or like a lunch, or maybe it was a lunch or something in the West
Mhm.
Pavilion. Everyone was there. And I remember I walked in and I was really scared because every single other student I saw was like there with their parents or was like there with a group or something. And I was just kind of like walking in because like I had just like signed up for this program. Like I wasn't like with something. And I was like, I don't know where to sit. Like I don't know who I'm supposed to talk to. Like this is so weird for me. Um, and so, I that was definitely like nerve-wracking for me. But then once I sat down at a table, it was easy. And everyone was super, super nice. And I don't even remember exactly who I talked to because I ended up becoming friends with everyone in our module. So it's like, I don't even, I don't really even really remember that dinner that well, but I do remember like feeling this sense of relief and feeling
Mhm.
like, okay, all I really have to do is put myself out there and it's going to be okay. And there are people everywhere who are willing to make these connections. Like, and so even going into this space where I didn't really feel like I knew anyone, like you were so welcoming and everyone was so welcoming that it was just, you know, it
Mhm.
made me feel it made me feel really hopeful. Like, you know, you
Mhm.
don't have to you don't have to already have like a connection in a place to be able to
Mhm.
be a part of it. And that was
No.
like something I don't think I had understood that or internalized it before then.
That is a big takeaway for sure. Yeah, because when you show up at places that you're not familiar, you do want to feel comfortable. And then sometimes it does affect how, the outcome of how you feel about moving forward with that said event or organization, depending upon how you're treated. So I am so super excited that, of course, and then you eat very well too, right? So
Oh
all
yeah.
and guess what? We're all kind of STEM crazy people. We love science, technology, engineering, and math, and we can do it in a fun way. And I'm just so glad that I was able to be a part of your high school journey. Well, a piece of it, anyways. So, Michelle, this is what I want to do. I want to play a game with you called This or That.
Okay.
Because there are these I know I know the intricate things and how you like those things in terms of STEM, but I want to know like some other things that what would you prefer? So we're gonna go
Okay.
through these slides and you tell me which one you prefer the most. Okay. Are you ready? This or
Okay.
that?
I'll try not to let my indecisiveness show through right now.
I'm indecisive too. Okay. This or that? Chicago
Oh,
or Philly?
I have to go with Chicago. I mean, I was in Chicago for 8 years, and there was MSIs, and I mean that whole community is in Chicago. My whole college experience is in Chicago. I think I don't know how I would have felt if I was in one place in Philly before I was in Chicago, but yeah, I'm biased. Definitely Chicago. It's just an amazing place, and there were so many opportunities there I never would have gotten otherwise.
Oh, Chicago. Good old Chicago. Deep dish or thin crust?
Oh, thin crust.
I know.
Easy. Come on. Deep dish is like 2 inches of cheese. That's too much cheese. That's too much cheese. Cheese is should be enjoyed, but it's not a full meal. You can't have a meal that's just cheese, and that's kind of what deep dish is. You know?
And you're from Chicago. I think the deep dish is for the tourists, but a lot of Chicagoans like thin crust.
Yeah, I think that's definitely right.
Tea or coffee?
Oh, coffee. I have
Coffee.
my coffee right here. I always have it with me. I think I like that it has a higher caffeine content,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yep. I hear that. I feel that. Dog or cat?
Now, I love animals. I love dogs. They're amazing. But I think cats are part of my soul. I grew up with
Wow.
cats. I grew up with cats. My parents always had cats. Um, my grandparents had cats. I have a cat now. I got a cat the second I moved out of my parents' house. It's the first time I had my own apartment that wasn't a dorm. I got a cat. I think
Oh.
they're so special.
Yeah, and they low key can kind of take care of themselves and you don't have to take them out all the time.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to give them lots and lots of love, but if you leave them home for a day while you go out, they're also going to be fine and they'll
Yeah.
entertain themselves.
So no guiltiness there. Dyed hair or natural color?
That's hard. I mean, it's hard to pick just one because I usually have both. Like this, here up, I have my natural color. Here down, I got my dyed hair. So, I'm a physical manifestation of that indecisiveness. But
So
I
you can
guess if I
select.
had to pick, I would say dyed because natural color is one color generally. At least for me, it is. I know some people are lucky and have this multi-toned hair naturally, but that'll never be me. And dyed hair can be anything. So if I had to pick one, it would be that. But
Awesome.
that's still tough.
And that's what I look forward to, is seeing the colors that you would dye your hair. Blue, I mean, you would have so many different colors. I loved it. Flip-flops or sneakers?
Oh, sneakers. Yeah. I think
Right.
flip-flops are I don't like sandals because the grit just gets in there. And
Yeah.
And also sneakers are I mean, I wore Converse. I wore the same pair of Converse every day of high school. I'd wear one pair of Converse for 6 months, and then I would order the exact same pair again on Amazon once they fell apart, and then I'd wear those for 6 more months. And that was
I love the
that was that
consistency.
was my that was my MO. That was what I did. Uh, And I think that's just like how I prefer to go.
Yeah. Are you still rocking Converse?
Actually, I have like this other pair of running shoes because a physical therapist told me I couldn't wear Converse anymore, which was like the
That's
saddest
right.
day of my life. But, you know,
Yeah.
maybe Converse will come out with some like orthotics at some point and I'll go
They
right back
need
to them.
to. They
Maybe
need to.
they do actually. They have so much stuff now. I should find out. Maybe they
Yeah.
do.
That's why I don't wear them because they kind of tear. Like, I can't wear them for that reason. Yes. Pump and iron or pump and gas?
So definitely the first, for two reasons. One is I don't have a car. And I've always really liked the idea that I can get from point A to point B without like bringing along 2 tons of metal and like 4 wheels and an air conditioner, which is what you have to do if you have a car. And then the second thing is I'm from Oregon originally,
Mhm.
and you don't pump your gas there. Someone does it for you. So
Whoa.
I never even knew that pumping gas was a thing until I moved to Chicago when I was 14. And
Really?
my mom was like, "Yeah, you have to pump your own gas here. You can't," or actually, I think it's beginning to become legal in Oregon, but for at least the entire time I was growing up there, you can't do it. You can't pump your own gas.
That is fantastic. I need to move to Oregon.
No sales
Wow.
tax there either. It's
Hello,
crazy.
thanks. Yeah. You don't pump your own gas. See, Michelle, this is why we had to do this or that. Okay. Neuroscience or data science?
I in the moment I would have to go with neuroscience, but I think that I'm probably biased because I did just sort of move out of a data science position. So what's new always feels exciting.
Mhm.
But I think I'd have to go with neuroscience because like a lot of my interest in data science really was sort of what it could allow me to learn, in my
Mhm.
neuroscience research, and like in those classes and just about the brain generally. So I would have to go with neuroscience. It's like it's the foundation of everything I experience. Like my experience of data science is still filtered through a brain that's doing God knows what, and I want to know what it's doing. so
Yeah,
so yeah.
that's awesome. Okay, you
I
survived.
did it. I almost got stuck on the hair one, but I got through it.
Yes. I did not know that about Oregon, and I did not know that you was originally from Oregon. So I just learned
Yeah.
so much. Wow. Okay, Michelle, tell me about your passion. What are you most passionate about nowadays?
I think that's a really big question. It's something that I've been trying to figure out. I mean, I have some passions that I can immediately state. I love making things. Um, I've always been really into origami, and I've been trying to spend more time doing that because I've had more time in my day recently, and so I've been working on a lot of projects there. And I think that one of the things when I try to figure out, I have all these different little hobbies or like little passions, and I'm trying to figure out the common thread between all of them. And I think that something that connects all of them is the idea of like a simple basic concept that when you look into it more deeply is filled with complexity. And like one of the
Mhm,
best ways I know how to like one of the best examples of that I think is origami, which is why I brought it up
mhm,
first. Like origami starts with like a single square sheet of paper, and it's like
mhm,
so simple. It's just like like a 2D square. But
mhm,
people make these incredible things. Like they make these incredible creations that are able to express like life and emotion. And also behind that, there's like a huge amount of math and a huge amount of computation that goes into creating these designs. Um, so like I'm currently retaking a course that MIT had, or it's like a MIT OpenCourseWare is a website where you can
Mhm.
access like a bunch of free course material from MIT. And I'm retaking
That's
a class there that's on geometric algorithms, and it's taught by an origami. So, that's something I'm really excited about. And I think that neuroscience is another example of like something that can be simple in some concepts, like a
mhm.
simple question, like how do we remember something? Or
Yeah.
like, why do we sleep? And,
Mhm.
it's like this simple question that you can think about forever. And
Mhm.
when you start getting into like the depths of it and just sitting down and doing like the hard work of actually trying to understand it, there is an infinite amount of stuff you can do. And I think
Mm.
that's like what excites me. Like being able to have all of this complexity. There's so much to do. You never get bored. But at the end of the day, you can wrap it up in this little bow and say, this is like what I'm interested in. And I can tell someone what I'm interested in just a few sentences. And I mean, I think that also kind of connects to like the fact that I really like teaching, like I loved taking this complicated concept and turning it into something simple. Cause like it is really, I believe that it's like those simple concepts that get people excited about things.
It
Like
is.
people like doing complex math and they like doing this complex science and stuff. But like at the end of the day, the question that gets people excited, those questions are usually simple, like
Mhm.
a simple why question or something like that.
Yeah, when you ask, if someone asks you why, and you got this before, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old asking you why,
Yeah.
why does leaves change color? It would be nice to have like a simple answer for that. Although it's based in chemistry, so it would be nice for us to be able to break that down and let a 5-year-old know, like, this is why this happens. And it's also facts fascinating that chemical reactions is happening around
Of
us and that
course.
we
Yeah.
can tell by the leaves changing colors. So it's really pretty awesome that you know this already. And I think when more people go into teaching and they can kind of be able to do this and have the breath to do this without all of the nuances of parents and classroom management, one having a good classroom management and having
Yeah.
students on board, you would be able to break these things down and talk to them in simpler terms. And talking in
Yeah.
simpler terms does not mean that you're stupid. It actually means that you're very smart, that you're able to break
Yeah.
something complex down. Remember, I would tell you that, like, when you go off, people will throw these buzzwords and jargon, and you're just like, what does it mean? Why am I sitting here? Pretty sure you've experienced that too.
Of course.
It, yeah, it's kind of like it's a doozy, right? It's a doozy. We don't want to hear all of that. We want to
Yeah,
hear
I mean, I
some.
think that that's something that you and the other teachers at MSI really kind of like just reminded us of over and over. Like you would say, like we'd be maybe practicing for one of like the facilitations we do, and you'd be like, okay, you need to make that section shorter. You can't talk for that long. Like you got to condense it down. What's actually important? What's actually important in what you're saying? And that was so
Absolutely.
helpful, not only for, obviously it was helpful for the kids and adults who were learning from us, but it was helpful for us too, because like we have to figure out what's actually important. Like when you squint and all the little details go away, what is the foundation of what we're trying
Wow.
to communicate? And that was
And
like that was something so valuable. And
mhm.
you really always understood the value of, condensing something down to, its most important parts, whether that was in teaching or whether that was in any other sort of mentorship that we were getting.
Yes.
That was always
Yes.
valuable.
Awesome. I'm glad that you guys got some takeaways from my crazy days. They are fun. Always fun to be around. Always fun to be around you all, because the creativity, the innovation, it's there. You just need the platform to do it. You just need the space to be able to create that. Now,
Totally.
let me ask you this. What are some life concepts that you're learning as a young adult that you're kind of like, I'm learning this. I'm an adult. Like, what are those life concepts?
So I think that one thing that I've had to learn, and like, okay, when I first say this, it might sound a little bit demoralizing, but I want to just try to say what I mean. So sometimes like the intrinsic motivation like doesn't show up. Sometimes it doesn't show up. It doesn't show up all the time. Like you're always going to have a passion for something. You're always going to be motivated by something. But sometimes in the moment you don't really want to do something and you still have to do it. And you know, that's tough. And I think that like one of the biggest things I've had to learn is how to create motivation for myself when I don't really have it. And I think that it's also really important to remember, and I try to remind myself of this all the time, like just because I don't always feel like doing something doesn't mean that like my passion for it isn't legitimate. Like I I love neuroscience and I love learning about it. And sometimes I'm reading a paper and I kind of just want to put it down because it's really dense and I'm having to look up 1,000 different words and I'm feeling bored. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's like, maybe I don't love it that much because I don't want to do this right now. But that doesn't mean I don't love it. It just means it's hard. And so I think sometimes I just have to find, you know, I have to find my own ways of making motivation for myself so that I can do what I really do have as a goal and I really do love to do. Um,
Yeah.
and so I have like a lot, I think I have a lot of different um, little tricks that I've had to just learn. And I think everyone will find those for themselves, like which little things work for them.
Hmm.
Um, like something that kind of seems so random, but for some reason works a little bit for me is flowcharts. So like occasionally I'll see a flowchart online that resonates with me. And the one that resonated with me most recently, and it was so simple, and I don't remember where this was from online. I saw it somewhere, was okay, if there's something you need to be doing or something you want to be doing, and there are two options. Either, you know, maybe you do feel like you can do it and then you can just go do it. Or you could say, but I'm scared. Then the option after that on the flow chart is okay, so do it scared. Like just because you're scared doesn't mean you don't do it. You just do it and you also are scared. And that's okay. And that's something that I've found myself using more recently. Like when I'm afraid to email someone because I think that like, you know, maybe I'm not allowed to be emailing them, but I really want to find out about this person's research, then I'll just email them and be kind of nervous about it. And that's okay. Cuz, you know, I don't think like courage is about not being afraid of something. I think it's about doing it even when you are afraid. Um, and so that's just, I mean, I think that's just one example of like a little trick that I've realized works for me. And like those tricks are going to be different for everyone. So just because like someone online, like an influencer is like, oh, this is how I make my day perfect, doesn't mean like that's how you have to do. That doesn't mean that's how you have to do yours.
Absolutely. You know what? There are so many ways to do something. And I love that. You have to find what works for you. And Michelle, you're right. I don't like paperwork. I'm passionate about a lot of things and things I'm passionate about. The paperwork, it just drives me crazy, but I have to do
Yeah.
it? And so I hear you. I hear you when you say, what are the things, but you still have to do it. And I think at your young adult life, understanding that will get you far. That will get you far. You still have to push through. You still have to. Let me ask you, what is one key advice that you've heard that you're incorporating in your adult life thus far?
I think that and this is definitely this is something that I've heard from multiple people, but it was something that I heard very specifically from a career advisor that I met with a few weeks ago, who said to me, like, you need to make sure that anything that you decide to do is something you're running to and that you're doing it because you're running to it, and you're not doing it because you're running away from something else. And that was something that she said to me in response to me saying I was applying to grad school, because I had just ended a job that wasn't the right fit for me. And the idea was like, make sure that I'm not going to grad school just to get away from something I didn't like. Make sure I was going to do that because it was something that I loved. And I think that's something that, like, I mean, pretty much applies to everything. Anything you're going to commit to is something you should, I think, where you need to take that into account. But that was really helpful to me, and it was like so concisely said. I was like impressed. She said it so perfectly. And so that's a more recent piece of advice. So I guess I haven't really had that so many opportunities to use it, but it was still something that I think was really valuable, and something that I think I will be like incorporating into the way I think about things.
Are you going to be running to grad school?
Yeah, so I'm still kind of figuring it out. I'm applying. I'm probably not going to be applying for a PhD program this year, but I am applying for post-bac research programs. So those are like 1 to 2 years. You're doing like intensive research for a couple of years, and not only are they like amazing programs, they give you like the experience to know, like, you've done full-time research for a couple of years. Is this something that you love? Is it something you see yourself doing? And I would know that. And so I think that would be like, and so that's sort of my hope, is that, like, if I can do one of these programs, I can get, a really strong idea of, why it is that this is something I want to do, and like absolutely confirm to myself that, like, that's what I love.
It's crazy that you said that, because after I graduated from college, I did biomedical research in a post-baccalaureate program.
Oh my
And
God.
yes, and just for those reasons, I knew that I couldn't do research. I thought I could, but I went home and I told my mom, and my mom goes, "Why are you fighting this teaching thing? I mean, I know you're not gonna make tons of money, but you're really fighting it, but you would be really good at it." And she said that quite a bit, and I'm like, "No, I'm gonna become a pathologist, like a PhD. I'm gonna get a PhD in pathology." And she's just like, "Hang it up. Like, that's not you. Like, you like people too much. You wanna inspire, you wanna do things. Like, just teach. Just like hang it up. This is what you're gonna be good at." And,
It's so
she
cool to
was
hear that from you.
right.
Because I had never, I think most of us, like, we know who you are now, but we never really knew that type of background about you. I never knew you did biomedical research. That's so cool to hear. And it's also so cool to hear that, you did something, realized it wasn't the right path for you, and then were totally able to pivot. Like,
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of people don't realize that they're able to do that.
Yeah, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to go back and reflect and do different things. And, throughout your career, you may make changes that you're in positions that will allow you to pursue more of your passion and more of your career goals, if that is a thing. And I don't really think anything's wrong with that. And there's not a perfect way to achieving that. And I think more
Yeah, of
people
course.
need to know that. And I
Yeah,
think
no,
where you're
totally. Like,
Mhm. I'm sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
oh, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I agree. And it's like never too late.
No, it's never too late. And as a matter of fact, I actually enjoy the research. There are aspects of being a scientist that I don't enjoy, and I think that's the writing of the papers and things of that nature. There are a couple things that I'm just like, I couldn't let this be my career.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Michelle, what is one piece of advice that you would give a high schooler about attending college? Any type of advice?
Yeah. I would say that I think that picking a college based on the people you'll be around, more so, even more so than the programs, which sounds like kind of like a weird priority, is, I think, the way to go. Like, there were amazing psychology and neuroscience programs all over the country and also outside of the country. But the reason I chose U Chicago was because the people are like so weird. Like, they're so weird. And it's the best. And I don't think, I think that, like, being surrounded by people, every single one of whom had something about them that just made them like so incredibly interesting, that was like the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. Um, and I think that, like, if I had been at another place where there was, like, a prestigious program, but I was surrounded by people that I didn't feel like were really challenging me, or really just like saying things where, like, I would go into a conversation and I would thought I would know what the conversation is about, and then someone says something so out of pocket, and I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" But then it ends up being like one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had. Like, that's, I think, like the most important thing you can surround yourself with when you're like 18 to 22. Um, and I know other people who, you know, didn't necessarily choose U Chicago for the programs. I mean, obviously there were programs that they wanted to do, but they were choosing it for the people. And I think that that's like just the most important thing. Like, at the end of the day, your career and your happiness are going to be based on the people that you know and the people you talk to. Like, and that was the same. I mean, that was the same in high school. Like, getting to do MSI, it was an amazing program. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing that I got out of it was the relationships, like my relationship with you and my relationship with, all of my friends who are in my module or in the modules around me. That was like the most important thing. And so that's like the advice I would give, is to prioritize just surrounding yourself with people who have interesting, weird minds.
I love it. And let me ask you this. What are you going to be looking forward to in the future?
I think I'm looking forward to, there's a lot I'm looking forward to. I think I'm looking forward to being able to discipline myself to do things that I love to do. And I know it might sound like you don't really need to discipline yourself if it's a thing that you love to do, but I think that I've learned that I do need to do that sometimes. And so, like, getting back to learning neuroscience and like reading papers, getting back to working on origami projects, and maybe doing, some studying for that of an algorithm I don't really care about, but will allow me to do something cool. Getting back to learning things I want to learn. That's what I'm most excited to do. And and I think the hardest thing about that will be putting in the work and the patience, but I know it'll be worth it, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, it would totally be worth it. Totally. Well, Michelle, I have learned so much more from you from this conversation. Again, I'm constantly always in a learning phase. And I'm just so glad that I got some good like knowledge nuggets from you. And I can wrap up and say that learning is fun for you. And it's also for me. I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. But from us talking, I know you are a lifelong learner, but not only that, kind of passionate about education and passionate about community. And
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see where you're going to go. Any last thoughts before we wrap up our catching up chat?
I think, yeah, I mean, I want to say, like, yeah, I also learned so much. I learned a lot about you as well, and about, like, sort of your background. It's really cool because I think sometimes when we have like sort of teacher, mentor, authority figures, I think people sometimes don't really consider like the fullness of their lives. And so it's fun, like, you know, catching up with you now or catching up with you any other time to like see, you know, the full person that you are, and like learning about like your perspectives and exactly why that is, so you're able to offer such valuable perspectives to us. So yeah, it's so amazing to be able to catch up with you, and,
Yeah.
and maybe to be able to share something that I've learned.
And then baby Naima, she came into the picture too during our session. So thank you for being so patient with
You
us
shared some
with that.
important insights. I'm serious. That was the highlight.
Yeah, she is pretty cool. She's a cool one. We need to keep her cool, Michelle. So I need you to come back and teach her origami and things and teach her the science behind that. Like I need that in my life. I need for her to be doing those cool things. Maybe we can make a big one, like a big one, and put it in her room.
My origami RSO from Chicago is still going strong, and they do community outreach programs all the time where they teach origami to kids. So I would keep an eye out for that, because that could actually happen.
Yes, send it. Send it my way. Oh my goodness, send it my way. Well, Michelle, it's been so fantastic. Thank you for catching up with me. This is catching up with um, my Michelle. She's been amazing. If you've enjoyed this, if you learned, please share, like, subscribe.